All right, so this is a review for the first quiz. Now, I'm going to show multiple ways of doing this, so you might want to watch all of it. You might want to fast forward. Okay? Now, the long way to do number one is say, well, I have the radical 5 on the bottom, so I need to multiply So you're going to multiply by radical 5 over radical 5. And what it does is, on the top, 20 times 5 is 100. So radical 20 times radical 5 is radical 100. And at the bottom, we simply get 5. Now, what is the square root of 100? That's 10 over 5, which leads us to our answer of just simply 2. But there is a shorter way of doing it. We know that 5 goes into 20 4 times. Therefore, radical 5 goes into radical 20 radical 4 times. Now, what's the square root of 4? Simply 2. Okay? So there's your answer. There's two ways of getting to it. And I don't care which one you take, but if you can find shortcuts, then take them. Okay, this one will definitely be an example of the shortcut saving a lot of time. If I multiply by radical 12 over radical 12, I'm going to get 180, radical 180, over 12. Then I have to go and take time to find out how this breaks down. And this breaks down to the square root of 36 times the square root of 5. So that means the top is square root of 6 times 5. Sorry, square root of 36, which is 6 times square root of 5 over 12. And then that leads to square root of 5 over 2. That's our answer. Okay? But if you would have noticed that 15 and 12 are both multiples of 3, therefore, radical 15 and radical 12 can be reduced by radical 3. So therefore, if I divide radical 15 by radical 3, I'd get radical 5. And if I divided radical 12 by radical 3, I'd get radical 4. Now, in this case, I don't have to rationalize, because what is radical 4? It's simply 2. A lot faster if you notice the shortcut. Okay? So in this one, I'm just going to do the shortcut. Well, actually, no, I'm not. If you recognize that the square root of 16 is simply just 4, what we really have is square root of 12 over 16. And then we break this down to radical 4 times, wow, that was nice, radical 3. Okay? Square root of 4 is 2. So that means the top is 2 radical 3 over 16. And since 2 goes into 16 8 times, I can just say my answer is radical 3 over 8. And that's it. Now, nothing goes into 6 and 25, so I can't reduce it. And multiply by radical 25 top and bottom would be a way to do it, but if you recognize that this is simply just 5, you're already done. It's radical 6 over 5, and there's nothing else to do. Again, on this one, you could multiply top and bottom by radical 3, but 3 goes into 12. Therefore, radical 3 goes into radical 12, radical 4 times. Now, what's that equal to? Simply just 2. All right, now this one is one where it does help to reduce. What goes into 8 and 18? 2. So what goes into radical 8 and radical 18? Radical 2. So if I divide radical 8 by radical 2, I get radical 4. And if I divide radical 18 by radical 2, I get radical 9. And look what I've got. 2 perfect squares. This is really just 2, and that's really just 3. So on the top, I have 5 times 2. On the bottom, I have 2 times 3. And that can be reduced to 5 over 3. And just another catch, if you would have noticed it, since there's a 2 on top and bottom, you could have canceled before multiplying and already had your answer of 5/3. It's up to you. All right, 6 times 12 is 72. So radical 6 times radical 12 is radical 72. Notice I keep saying the word radical. If you're dealing with radical numbers, use that term every time to remember to keep the radical sign with it. Now, how does this break down? Again, you just take the green paper on your desk and just take your calculator and divide. 72 by 49. No, decimal. 72 by 36. You've got a winner. 36 and 2. If you just take the time to use the calculator and do the division, this is easy. So, square root of 36 is 6. That's radical 2. And you're done. This one's not as scary as it looks because you're going to do inside times inside, and a radical times itself is just the number. So this ends up being just 2 times 12, 24. All right? Outside times outside, 10. Inside times inside, radical 50. You take your calculator and you start working backwards. Divide by 36, decimal. Hopefully you just recognize that, oh, 2 quarters makes 50 cents. Now remember, this 10, bring it down. This 10 times the square root of 25, which is 5, times radical 2. So my final answer is 50 radical 2. I know there are a lot of problems in this review, but you need them. That's the only way you get good at this is practicing it. So this is 1. Outside times outside is simply 4. Inside times inside is radical 30. Now, look at your green piece of paper or your list of perfect squares. Divide by 25, decimal. 16, decimal. 9, decimal. 4, decimal. You're actually finished. There's nothing to do there. Okay, radical 6 times radical 2 is radical 12. Don't forget that. What magic number goes in there? Radical 4 times radical 3. The square root of 4 is 2. The radical 3 is left over, and we're finished. Outside times outside, inside times inside. And guess what? There's no perfect square number that goes into 15. Not 9, not 4. You're finished. 63. Use your chart. What goes into 63? Radical 9. Radical 7 times. The square root of 9 is 3, and we're done. Radical 48. What goes into 48? Not 36, not 25, but 16 does. 16 does 3 times. Now, the reason I start at the end is because you could divide by 4, but then you'd have to do this twice. The square root of 16 is 4, and radical 3 just hangs around. $2.94. This one requires a little bit of work, a little bit longer on your calculator, but you have a calculator. Use it. Okay? You should be able to use common sense and not even do any of the numbers over 100. But then there's 81. Does it go in? No, it does not. 64? No, it does not. But guess what? The board's messed up. Guess what? 49 does. 49 times 6. So the square root of 49 is 7. Root 6 just hangs around. 150. Well, $1.50. How many quarters go into $1.50? 6 of them. Okay? Square root of 25 is 5. Radical 6. 245. Like the one above it, 49 goes into it. This time, 5 times. So, 7 root 5. 45, what goes into that? What magic number? 9 does. So that's 3 square root of 5. Finished. All right, now some solving. Remember, this is saying x times radical 4. It could also be written like this. And that would be more what we're used to looking at something like this. How would we solve that? We would divide by 4. So what are we going to do here? We're going to divide by radical 4. That cancels. Now, you may not have recognized it yet, but radical 4 is simply 2. So that means the answer is 15 halves. If you did recognize it, you could have changed it right away and just had this equation, 2x equals 15. And you got no radicals at all. Take the shortcuts when you can. Now, radical 3 is not a perfect square, so we're going to have to divide. When we do that, we cannot have a radical in the bottom, so we need to multiply by radical 3 over radical 3. That gives us 36 times radical 3 on the top, and a radical times itself is just the number, which happens to go into 36 12 times. Remember, if this is going too fast, you can hit pause. You can also, on YouTube, go and slow down the video, do 3/4 speed. You can also rewind. You are in control of your learning. Now this one's different because we have x squared. How do we undo x squared? Well, we get the board to work first. We square root. That cancels that, giving me just x. We do want to remember that there is a plus and minus answer. In geometry, we're not going to use the negative, but just to be in good training for next year, we will use it. Now, before I could write it here, or I can just break it down here. It's up to you, depending on how much you want to rewrite stuff. But the square root of 9 is 3 root 10, and there's your answer. 3 times root 10, and negative 3 times root 10. This one's an easy one. Why? Because 100 is a perfect square. So it's simply plus or minus 10. Okay, like the first ones on this page, we're going to divide by what's multiplied by the x, radical 2. Over here, do the same thing. Now we have to rationalize, multiply by radical 2 over radical 2. That gives us on the top 5 radical 6, because radical 3 times radical 2 is radical 6. Now on the bottom, we're just left with a 2. 2, wow. You don't want that. 2 and 5 do not cancel, so there we have it. All right. 24 is an easy one because everything's going to cancel. We divide by radical 3, get rid of that. But on this side, guess what? Boom. That's it. Last two. Square root both sides. Plus or minus answer. 98. What goes into 98? 49. 2 times. So they're both radicals. So the square root of 49 is 7. Radical 2. And last but not least, very easy, and you'll see why. X equals plus or minus. Let's look at our chart. 66. 49 does not go in. 36 is a decimal. 25, 16, 9, and 4. No perfect square goes into 66. We are finished. And that's it.